Call the November 26, 2018 City Council Committee of the Whole meeting to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Borowitz. Brooks.
Here.
Alderman Crawford will be absent. Frank.
Here.
Freeman.
Here.
Porter.
Here.
Ratcliffe. Sanderson.
Here.
Snow.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. Under public comment, Chief Heiser would like to make a statement this evening. Chief Heiser?
Thank you, Mayor. On this coming Thursday, Belvidere Fire Department is going to be losing a man to retirement, and the gentleman right behind me, Captain Greg Holmes. Greg started on the department back in 1991, and he'll be retiring 27 years later. I met Greg in '95 when I had first started. I could tell he was an extremely passionate individual about the fire service. He was like one of the most passionate people I ever met when it comes to our vocation. 25 years later, 27 for him, the passion still remains. He's a wealth of information. Some people talk about things and what they know. He actually talks it and he can walk it. He's a career-long student. As recently, he just took Hazmat B, which is like a class that a lot of us took a long time ago, right? Yeah. He didn't totally finish it, so he thought, you know what, I'd like to have that certification, so he went and got it. Career-long student. He's well-known and very well thought of in the local fire scene. He's an absolute rock when it comes to emergency scenes. He's the best training officer that I have ever been associated with. When he leads something as far as training, you can just be assured that he's speaking from experience. So, with all that being said, Captain Holmes, I'll come up here and say some words. He's a man of few words, but we'll see.
Yeah, thanks. The chief asked me if I'd be willing to come up and just talk tonight, just real quick. And I want to tell the city thank you for giving me the opportunity to work for the city as a firefighter. It's been a very fulfilling and rewarding profession. Before I became a firefighter, I was working construction, and it was a family-owned business, and I loved it. I didn't think there was anything in the world any greater than being a firefighter or working construction, till I got a taste of being a firefighter. And I started out in Capron on a volunteer department is where I got my start. They had heard, I don't know, and I don't know how, that I had applied to become a firefighter for the city. And one night I was eating dinner and a trustee up there knocked on my door and said, we're desperately needing firefighters. And so I thought, all right, I'll try it. And it didn't take me very long, and I knew this is where I wanted to be. And again, thank you for giving me that opportunity. It's worked out fantastic for me. I've met a lot of great people. We've helped a lot of great people along the way, and I've had the opportunity to work with some of the best guys in the country here, and that I'm going to miss. I can't say enough coming in and working with them. And that my crew and everybody on the department's fantastic, but this is some of my crew right here right now, and they make my job easy. And thank you guys, I appreciate it. And I know there's been some talk about what's going to happen, where's things going to go. There's some people changing shifts, but overall, I look at when I got started on the department back in 1990, 91, the amount of calls we ran, what was going on, and the department today is nothing like that. The guys come in at 7 o'clock in the morning, before 7, and they're busy. They're busy from then till they get a chance to take a break at night, and then most nights anymore now, they're up 4 or 5 times during the night. And training, doing tasks around the department and out for the public. It's a totally different department today than when I got started back in '91. And we owe that to the chiefs we've had, the guys that fire and police commissioners in the city has hired. They do an excellent job of sorting them out and getting them hired. And, you know, thank you for that. And again, thank you very much for letting me work for the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Under public forum this evening, we have nothing on the agenda. Under reports, offices, boards, and special committees, public safety unfinished business, there is none. Public safety new business, there is none. Finance and personnel unfinished business, there is none. And under finance and personnel new business, we have a bunch. First up, we have Tim Knopf of Gallagher Williams Manny to present our health renewal for calendar year 2019. Come on up, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to give you just kind of a synopsis and some details that may be added to the packet that you received for tonight's meeting. As we have been working with the city for a number of years and continually do every year as we meet with the city and look at where the philosophy is, what's happening in the marketplace, and then we go to market to bid and see if our incumbent carrier, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield, is still competitive in the marketplace and doing the job that they need to do for your employees. And as part of that due diligence process, we went to a number of different vendors, again this year like we have in the past. And the market continues to kind of get funneled to where there's less and less carriers, but we went to the big players that are national that can give you access to a lot of different providers, namely Aetna, United Healthcare, Cigna. We did not this year go to self-funding, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We did look at self-funding last year. And last year, ironically, just to kind of set the stage, when we went to the marketplace, both Aetna and Cigna declined to participate because they said that they were uncompetitive with regards to your price points from last year in 2018. Just to kind of give you a points of reference, historically, just the last 6 years, your average rate increase for the city's health care has been 4.77% a year. So just slightly over CPI, but significantly less than healthcare inflation, which has been running about 9%. Last year, your costs, and this was based on your numbers of employees vary from time to time, but last year with 116 employees, you were at about $1.9 million in total cost for premiums for the year, and we had a 5.2% increase last year. That was with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And last year, our self-funded claims, and this is why we didn't go self-funded look this year, is last year when we got the self-funded bids in, they were saying that our claims were going to be, our costs were going to be somewhere between $1,990,000 and $2.3 million. And we have the Blue Cross reports as far as where your claims activities have been year to date, and they've paid out $1,946,000 in claims. So had we moved to self-funding last year, just as a point of reference, we would have not only paid that $1,946,000 plus administration costs, so we would have been at that $2.3 million mark that I kind of mentioned just a minute ago. So by staying where we were at last year with Blue Cross, it saved the city, by not going self-funding, $440,000 is what we would have incurred. So it was a smart move that we decided to stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield. This year on the renewal, Blue Cross originally wanted a 2.2% increase. And despite the fact that we have a loss ratio that exceeds 100%, which means they paid out more in claims than they collected in premiums, we were able to negotiate that down to 0.2%, so almost flat as far as a rate increase. So the annual premium for the entire year is going up about $3,000 on $1,950,000 of costs, okay, in totality. Now, if our claims, and we went self-funded this year, we're running in that $1.9 million, we'd probably be at that 2.6 million marker on a self-funded platform. So again, hence why we didn't go self-funding, because it would just incur a lot more cost to the city. One of the things, just so that for a transparency standpoint, we did get a bid from Cigna. It came in about 12% under, so it was at about $1,710,000 in costs, which looked attractive at face value, comparatively speaking to Blue Cross. But it's ironic that last year when we were at $1.9 million, Cigna declined to bid us because they said they were too high. And this year they're willing to strip their cost a couple $100,000 to try to entice us. And so the thought process is that it may be one of those bait and switches where we get there, and then if our claims are at $1.9 million like they were last year, they're going to jack us to $2 million or $2.1 million the next year and give us a big rate increase the second year. And with Blue Cross at 0.2%, we kind of have a known commodity where we're at. There would be some disruption if we move to Cigna, in that the network will be similar but not exactly the same. So there could be some doctor disruption for some of the employees, as well as we do an underlying partial self-funding of your deductible, because we buy a higher deductible from Blue Cross, and then the city self-funds some of the claims costs. And we have an arrangement with a firm that actually gets now the direct feeds from Blue Cross on any events or services that the employees of the city incur, where the employees no longer have to turn in EOBs to get reimbursed under that deductible. If we move to Cigna, they'd have to go back to that process, which would incur some more administration services and costs and just a little more disruption to your employees. So with all of that being said, even though numerically Cigna looks somewhat attractive on face value, I think at the end of the day, a year from now, we'd be having a different conversation about where they stand. And my recommendation has been made already, and suggest to the committee here that you take the 0.2% rate increase from Blue Cross and renew as is for 2019. And then I just want to talk for a minute about dental, and then I'll field any questions that you have. Your dental plan has been self-funded for a long time. We have Northern Illinois Health Plans doing the administration on it. There's freedom and flexibility to go to any dentist that any employee wants to, so it's not like a network or a PPO where they have to choose a dentist and get certain benefits in network versus out of network. They can go anywhere they want. And then the plan design a couple years ago, we enhanced it and enriched the benefits to the employees. And the increase for next year is 0%, so your renewal on your dental is flat. And there were a couple bids that came in, but they were relatively close. But to disrupt that and maybe have balanced billing to your employees, it'd be recommended maybe stay self-funded under the same guise at a 0% increase on your dental as well for 2019. Any questions? You know, I just said a mouthful. Yes.
No.
So I gathered, based looking at this chart, the only difference I see in what was current versus what's new, up on the top right-hand side on that chart, it goes HSA, BPP, and then you got the 1350, 1080.
Yep.
And it doesn't say that on the other.
It's still the $1,350. That's the minimum deductible for a health savings account. We don't have any employees in that right now currently enrolled, so it's not affecting any employees. There used to be one, and then they migrated back over to the PPO plan. Yes.
You said, are these a year contracts?
Yes.
Okay,
They're for
'cause
12
you
months.
said something about maybe if you went with Citgo or something, that maybe Cigna, that after a year they might do the bait and switch.
Yeah, so what I meant by that is that last year when our price was $1.9 million to Blue Cross, they told us they didn't want to bid it because their costs were too high. So that tells me that they were priced at $2 million or $2 million plus. This year, they're coming in at $1.7 million. So it kind of says to me, why 12 months ago did you not want this group the same way, and now this year you want to collect $1.7 million, and knowing that our Blue Cross claims were at $1.946 million, You know, if they only collect $1,700,000 and they pay out $1,946,000 plus their labor costs, they're gonna get it all back next year in a rate adjustment. They're gonna increase your rates next year by that sum and then some, probably. That's what I meant by the bait and switch there.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what you meant by next year.
For 1/1/2020, yes. Good question, yes.
Alderman Sampson?
I make a motion to approve this proposal for this year.
I have a
Next
motion, may I have a second, please? Alderman Porter, any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, health renewal is approved unanimously
Thank
at this
you.
point. Look forward to city council with final resolution. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice holiday, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. Thank you. Take care.
Next, we are awarded a $4,000 grant from the Boone County Community Foundation. And Becky, you want to talk about that a little bit? Or?
Over the summer, when we had our interns here, as you know, we had the playground installed based on another grant, as well as some donations from our community. So we applied for a grant through the Boone County Community Foundation to help build a shelter out there, because now that we have the playground, there's no shelter. So for example, when the summer lunch program takes place, when there's inclement weather, they have to cancel, so then those kids don't get lunch that day. So having a shelter out there would allow this program, to expand, and even on inclement weather days. So although this grant probably won't pay for the entire shelter, it's a good start and gives us some leverage as we ask other people in our community and apply for other grants to pay for the entire shelter.
I have a motion to approve acceptance of the fourth. Motion by Alderman Snow, second by Alderman Brooks. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's approved unanimously. Next, we have the Sikich LLP reappointment as our independent auditors. Becky, did you want to address this?
What you have before you is a 3-year renewal agreement with Sikich. This is the auditing firm that we have been using the last 3 years. They've done a really good job. I've been impressed with them. Not always easy, because they come in with recommendations that, some of them are harder than others to implement, but overall I think they have our best interests in mind, and I think they've done a good job for us. We're actually our costs are actually going to go down a little bit in this next agreement, which is a good thing. I think, once you get to know a client and we get to know each other, things run more smoothly year after year. So we're at that point where, we kind of click, and I know what they need of me and they know what to ask of me, and so things get done a little bit quicker and a little smoother now.
I have a motion to approve reappointment. Alderman Brooks, second by Alderman Frank. Additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it is approved unanimously and forwarded to City Council for final disposition. Next up, we have the 2018 tax levy request from the Belvidere Fire Pension Fund.
What you have before you is, first we have the Belvidere Fire Pension Fund, and then our next request will be the Belvidere Police Pension Fund. But as you recall, every year there's an actuarial study that is done to determine what the city should be levying for police and fire pensions. And then each year they provide you with that, the results of that study, as well as a memo highlighting why the costs are going to go up as much as they are. So if you have any questions, hopefully I can answer them. I'm not sure if Chief can or not, but they're pretty straightforward. These assumptions and these recommendations, every single year since I've been here, we have approved paying this amount for the levy.
Motion or question? Yeah, we need a motion to approve. Motion by Alderman Snow, second. Second by Alderman Brooks. Alderman Snow.
So Becky, I saw somewhere in here we're looking to get all this resolved by 2040, so that we don't have to tap into the tax dollars in that same way. But how are we doing compared to other municipalities, or do you have access to that?
I've been to numerous different meetings where we've discussed the pensions. I would say everybody's struggling. We're not alone. I mean, every single municipality is struggling to pay for these pensions. There are some municipalities, their entire levy is going to pay for these pensions. So we're in better shape than those. But yeah, we're not alone. Everybody's in the same boat.
Alderman Sanderson?
Yeah, I had kind of a busy weekend, so I wasn't able to look at this in real depth, but it kind of looked like they were asking for a somewhat of an increase, because if they could invest more, they could pay it down quicker. Am I right about that?
That's part of it. Your investment, the return on the assets changes. The amount that they're investing, the return is 7%. And that amount can fluctuate based on what your actuarial recommends. For example, right now IMRF is at 7.5, but they're actually recommending to come down to 7.25 and possibly lower than that. So that can affect what you're asked to put into the pension.
So do you recommend what Lauterbach is recommending, Becky? That will fit into what the budget is?
I do. Overall, this is better than it has been in previous years. Between police and fire, the increase is just under $100,000 for next year.
I believe the city attorney has a comment.
In case the council has forgotten, or for those that are newer, several years ago, the state changed the statutes governing the pension funds and municipal contributions within the pension funds. We are required to levy, and then, well, actually, it doesn't matter if we levy it, but we have to put into the pension funds was actuarially determined by an actuary to put into the fund. If we don't agree with what the pension fund's actuary says, we'd have to go and hire our own actuary. They would do an analysis, and then we'd try and pick between the two. But absent that information, if you don't place the proper amounts into the pension funds, they can come back, file a court action, and basically impound your general funds coming out of your regular levy that's been earmarked for other projects to pay those pensions. So if you were not to approve this, you'd have to go out and get your own actuary. Oh, that's this one?
Yeah, this is from our own actuarial.
From the pension funds.
No, then there's the state of Illinois contribution rate, which is lower than this, but we're never going to, it's not going to help us reach our goals. Yeah, so we want to go with what the actuarial rate is.
But you have to go with the actuarial rate, because if you don't, they can impound your funds.
They have the ability to invade the general fund if you don't make the statutory municipal contribution, and we make more than that, so we can catch up faster. Alderman Brooks.
Yes, being on the pension board, firefighters pension board, I'd like to commend Sean Shadle. He is really a sharp individual, and he keeps a good watch on the dollars that are in this fund, and he's very wise when it comes to investing. And everybody takes advice from him. I think he knows as much as the people that are paid to manage the fund. So you got a top of the chart man there, Chief.
Motion and a second. Alderman Porter, you have a question?
Yeah, just two questions. So this looks like it's going to be a 3.22% increase to the citizens. Is that for the levy? And also, do employees contribute to this pension, or is it strictly employer contributions?
With the levy that you're talking about, the 3.22%, that'll be item F when we talk about the overall levy is increasing. This is part of it, but that's not that part. And the fire and police, they do also contribute to the pension as well.
Anything else, sir? All those in favor of approval? Alderman Stevens.
I was just going to say that I think when I left the department, the contribution taken out of the firefighters' checks was almost 10%. We're very close to that, I think.
I believe it's 9.65.
9 points. Okay, close to 10. It was taken out of the firefighters and policemen's pension checks every 2 weeks.
The idea is at the time of retirement that the productivity of the investments in the fund will pay for the firefighter's pension without having to come back to the city for additional contributions to write those checks. So, any additional questions or comments? Alderman Snow.
And if I read this right, and I may be wrong, so in the overall scheme of things, the fire and police do not participate in Social Security. Correct. And so they're not contributing, we're not contributing.
To Medicare, correct. Mhm.
Anyone else? All those in favor of approval signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously, passed on to council for final consideration, which then brings us to the police pension. Same discussion. May I have a motion to approve? Motion by Alderman Snow, second. Alderman Sanderson. Additional questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously, forwarded to the city council for final disposition. Okay. Then that brings us to the big one, the announcement of the estimated tax levy for tax year 2018. Ms. Tobin?
Okay, so each year we do the announcement for the estimated tax levy, which is today, and then our first reading will be on December 3rd, and then along with the public hearing and the second reading will be on December 17th. So at this time, the estimated amount of the tax levy needed to finance the various city needs and activities is $5,144,325, with an additional $733,832 for the operations of the Ida Public Library. So this does represent, for the city, an increase of $160,391, and for the library, $22,893 over what we asked for the levy last year. Just as we have in the past, we did not use our home rule authority as we could have. I used the formula as if we were still under tax caps.
Yes, Alderman Sanderson, is that a motion?
Yeah, that's a motion.
Motion, a second? Second by Alderman Snow. Alderman Sanderson.
Yeah, so thank you for keeping that under tax caps, Becky. That's one of the questions I was going to ask you. So you said if it's under tax caps, it's 2.1, and then tax levy request is 322. Is that because of the library then?
No, that would be because you also have to factor in new property. So you have new property that's never been taxed before that all of a sudden we start receiving tax money for as well. So if you recall, we have quite a bit of, new construction. Granted, most of those are in the enterprise zone, so it'll take a few years before we reap the full effect of those tax dollars, but we at least get to start seeing part of it. So it's the new property on top of the 2.1%.
Additional questions or comments? Alderman Snow.
Maybe Becky should be able to answer this. So is the library under the same home rule portion as we are as far as raising their levy?
They are. In the past, what we have done is whatever our percentage of increase is, they increase theirs the same amount, as long as they need it. I mean, they take it back to their board and decide what their needs are for their budget and everything, but they basically go with the same percent increase that we do.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approval signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
We have one opposing vote. Forwarded to council for final disposition as an ordinance. There will be a first and a second reading. Okay. So next we have an appointment of Carl, and Carl helped all of us with pronouncing your last name the right way the first time so we all get it right. Ganevuk. Carl Ganevuk. You guys all saw his resume. Would you like to come up and say a few words about why you'd like to serve?
Happy Thanksgiving. I'm new to the community and love it. So want to be able to help out in some capacity, and so our esteemed mayor asked if I would be willing to serve on this commission, and I agreed. So.
Have a motion to approve? Motion by Alderman Freeman, second by Alderman Porter. Questions or comments of Mr. Ganay-Book? Alderman Sanderson and Alderman Porter.
One for you, Your Honor. You know, when we have appointments, I thought we were gonna, you know, with all due respect to Carl, you know, put that out to the public. Did that happen where you asked other?
We did not advertise in the paper, but we've been looking to fill that vacancy for quite some time by talking to a number of different people who were brought to our attention as potential appropriate folks to serve on the board.
But we didn't put it out in the paper, I think.
No, we don't recruit those in the paper.
We used to do that in the past, and I thought it would be a good practice.
Did we ever advertise in the paper? I don't ever recall advertising in the paper.
Well, we used to, we put out the council, you're looking for somebody or something like that.
Well, I think that statement was made by Gina several times that we were looking for folks to serve. We had some openings on the.
Well, I guess I must have missed it.
Okay.
I would disagree. The only reason I knew there wasn't any is because I looked to see how many people were on there, and they used to write vacancy on the list of the members who attended the meeting and that, but now it doesn't. So you don't know even looking at that, but I can count them and find out. But you've never made an announcement in quite some time that we've got an opening. If anybody knows anything that I'm aware of, or that you've made an announcement.
Between Historic Preservation and Plan Commission, in the last year and a half, there's been several vacancies. Historic Preservation was a member down for a while, and then Plan Commission was 2 members down for a while. And at the very beginning, I don't know if I ever brought up specifically to City Council, because I don't go to all the council meetings, but we were putting vacancy on the agenda, and then that got dropped off. If I was at community events, I would bring it up, because it's hard to get volunteer. I mean, anyone that does anything knows that it's hard to get volunteers. So if I was at a community event with people that, okay, these people volunteer, like they have that in them, I would bring it up at those kinds of social events. One of the husbands of a Historic Preservation Commission member was thinking about it. In the county, they do publish their vacancies, so for the newspaper stuff, you may be thinking of the Boone County vacancies. But yeah, like I said, there's been numerous through the years. This is the last one, and this term actually expires March, April, May of next year, because it's just filling a term that was vacated from a resignation, and then that appointment will be up again.
So, are you suggesting that we should advertise in the paper every time we have a vacancy?
Well, I think it's not a bad idea, because we have a lot of talent, and I'm not disparaging.
None taken.
It's just a different conversation for all appointments, kind of. And so, you know, I think it's a good idea that we have a lot of talent. Maybe someone retired that, you know, used to be in the construction business, things like that. It would be a good idea. And that's all I got to say.
So noted. Alderman Snow.
A couple other things in that regards is that we could put it on the website, or you could throw it out to the chamber, because you have people that volunteer a lot through that organization.
Well, I'll speak to that in the networking thing. I go to about 25, 30 meetings a week, and when we have an opening at the chamber or at any of the other meetings with organizations in the community, actually, I approached Carl at a Rotary lunch.
Yes, sir.
Because I just struck up a conversation and said this might be something that you'd be interested in looking at. So, you know, there's a lot of that networking that goes on, but we can always improve the process. I certainly don't have any problem with that. So, yes, Alderman Stevens.
Was that Ganay-Boo? B-O-O, or?
The W is pronounced like a V.
Ganay-Vu.
Ganay-Vu.
Okay,
Yeah.
with a V.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Alderman Sanderson.
So for Carl, I appreciate you wanting to step up and do this.
Sure.
I think you might bring some spirituality to here, but what kind of experience do you have for planning and stuff like that?
Well, as a senior pastor, lots of committee meetings, and also construction. We built 2 churches during the course of my career. And, but you're absolutely right. If we had someone who was from the background of building and trades, I'm sure that they would be far more qualified in that particular aspect of it. I'm simply a citizen of this community who would like to be able to serve without a lot of technical knowledge in that area. You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Porter.
Yeah, was this a paid position? I am not familiar with that.
Gina?
The commission gets paid $40, a stipend of $40 per meeting they attend. So if they don't attend a meeting, they do not get their $40. Sometimes meetings last 20 minutes, and I have sat down several times with Carl, so he knew what the position fully entailed. Some meetings last 2 hours. The longest meeting I have ever been involved with lasted till 2:30 in the morning. Dan was on commission at that time. So sometimes you really earn the $40. Just to let people know the makeup of the commission right now, Bob Cantrell's on it. So we do have some construction knowledge with him. Allie Maher, that works at RD Thiel, is on it. She's our newest chairman, and she's doing an excellent job. It's kind of nice to have a younger female for that diversity on perspective. Art Highland, which I believe everyone knows, he does Habitat for Houses and Keenage Center, so he has some building knowledge and just a wealth of the history of the community, background of what different properties were used for. Paul Engelman, who is logistics and National Guard, so he understands the procedures and stuff. Andy Reyes, which I believe everyone is familiar with, he has quite the history of social and civic knowledge. Daniel Arevalo, who the council should know, he was an alderman. He's in the trades for welding, but again, he is young and he's a minority, so it's good to have that diversity. And then the vacancy. So it's a pretty good mix right now. There's some technical knowledge, there's different ages, there's different backgrounds. So when discussions do occur at the commission for the public hearings, it's a pretty well-balanced discussion.
Gina?
Alderman Brooks.
Yeah, Gina, you've named numerous functions that one would perform. I noticed that you missed someone to say the prayer at the start of the meeting. Now you've got it.
Any other questions or comments? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carl, welcome to the commission. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for your confidence.
Next up, we have the payout of vacation hours on the books for Derek Vale, and Brent will tell us, enlighten us about what we really need to do here.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's a memo in your packet with, including the request from Mr. Vale. He would like to be paid for his vacation time that he's been unable to use, which was due to Ryan Morey's, our other mechanic in the street department, made the decision to relocate to Florida. And because of that, Derek has been unable to use his vacation. And with our new mechanic starting over the weekend with the snowstorm, he will not be able to, if we carry over that vacation time, he feels he will not have the time to use it. His time is going to be better spent in at work, helping out the new mechanic get used to the surroundings. Per the contract, the request has to be made to carry over the time, and if the council denies the carryover, then the employee is paid. So in this case, we need a motion to approve the carryover of 57 hours of unused vacation time, and then I would respectfully request the council to deny that request, so then that'll allow payment to Mr. Vale.
I have a motion and a second. Snow and Brooks. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Request is denied. Will be paid out.
No.
We're all looking at you crazy. It's all right. It worked out okay. so.
Thank you.
I had a question on that. I was gonna ask
Okay.
you, it just, since we voted on it already. But, so how long, so it sounds like you have a new mechanic. That's pretty good. How long were you without a mechanic?
Do you remember when Ryan left?
At the beginning of October.
Okay.
Really hasn't been that long, but, okay.
It's been long enough. And
Long
it
enough,
was-
but I could see where you have to break in a new guy.
Yeah, well, he's got a training by fire over the weekend here with the snow removal yesterday and getting ready for the snow removal. Yeah, so he's had a busy couple of days.
You guys have ever, any of you, taken the opportunity to go down to talk to the mechanics in the shop? We need them, two of them down there all day, every day, because we fix a lot of stuff instead of sending it out. We work on our fire trucks if we can, you know, do whatever we can, save some dough. Alderman Sanderson?
Yeah,
Again?
and so the 57 hours, what does that amount to in a payout?
The rate is what, 32 something an hour?
Close to 2,000.
Right, so where are we gonna pay that out of, what line item is?
Well, it'll come out of salaries because since Ryan's retired or he didn't retire,
Came
he
out with
moved,
his-
so it's not gonna, it won't have any impact on the budget whatsoever.
Okay. So we'll take care of that. Next up, we have soil borings concerning the Appleton Force Main Extension. Brent?
Yes, another memo in your packet. As you know, CES Engineering is doing the final design and the specifications and the plans for the force main extension on Appleton Road. In order to complete that work, we need to have 3 soil borings done for the length of the push that we're proposing. We got 3 prices to complete that work. Soil and Material Consultants was the low price at $3,154. CES has reviewed all of the proposals, and they concur with the recommendation to approve the proposal from Soil and Material Consultants to complete the soil borings for the Appleton Force Main Extension at a lump sum cost of $3,154. This work will be paid for from line item 61-5-820-6190.
I have a motion by Alderman Sanderson. May I have a second, please? Alderman Snow, additional questions or comments? Alderman Freeman.
So Brent, this price is for all 3 of them, or is it for each one?
No, that's the total for all 3.
Alderman Snow?
Quite a price difference between those. Any explanation there, or just the nature of the market?
I can't explain what drives the difference in the prices for you. I don't know, I'm not sure. And they're all pretty close in the ballpark, they're not too far apart.
Any additional questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved and forwarded to council for final disposition. Which brings us to item D, amending the city's harassment policy. Attorney Dreller?
I place a memo in your packets. Essentially, the General Assembly changed the law again, go figure, lengthening the time limits within which an individual can bring a claim for either the Illinois Department of Human Rights or the EEOC, rather than simply insert the new timeframes into our policy. I simply recommended amending the policy to say they can file their complaints within the time permitted by law, so that if they change them again, we don't have to change the policy every time they change state or federal law. So the recommendation would be to approve the resolution within your packets 100-5, the resolution in your packets, which is required by Public Act 100-0554.
May I have a motion to that effect? Motion by Alderman Sanderson, second by Alderman Porter. Questions or comments concerning the motion now on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously and forwarded to City Council for final distribution. Which then brings us to item E, final item this evening, an agreement to establish the Northern Illinois Land Bank Authority. In your packets was an intergovernmental agreement and bylaws handout. Could I have a motion to approve, please? Motion by Alderman Freeman, second. Alderman Snow. Questions or comments? Alderman Snow.
So some of us did attend the land grant dog and pony show at the city-county coordinating meeting, but you had mentioned, I thought previously, that somebody might come and explain more about what we're getting into. Does that happen next week by chance, or are we gonna go with this and not really have a
Well,
full?
we'd like to get this moving ahead. Unfortunately, the timing schedule for us trying to get this on this year and working with somebody to come tonight and didn't work out. Alderman Stevens attended a meeting with me, what's that been, 2-3 months ago? It's been a while, 2 months. As you mentioned, the dog and pony show, the reality of this is it has no cost to us. It has no obligation to us. They are simply wanting to use our ability to form this, and we already have considerable funding for it that we've gotten from a state grant. And the reason that they're wanting to use us to head this up, so to speak, is because of our home rule authority, because under state law, to be able to form a land bank, you have to have home rule. So also, we had found out that Freeport had gotten a grant, and they want to join with this. This will be administered realistically by Region 1 Planning Commission and using the funding and grant dollars. So for us, it's not so much about residential tear downs, and because we don't have that kind of blight. I mean, for the city of Rockford, they've got 6,000 houses that are in some state of needing to be torn down or rehabbed. For us, it may apply as we go forward to some of the industrial and commercial properties. We have about 23 houses, I think, on our list of houses we'd like to be able to tear down. In essence, how the land bank works is they acquire through tax sale or through other means the deeds to property that then they will put money into rehab and then sell at a profit, which that money goes back into the land bank. But this will be a consortium, working with a consortium of local banks that will do some of the lending. We received an administrative grant to establish the land bank. I think it was $265,000. Does that sound right, Becky? I'm trying to think. Does that sound right to you, Alderman Stevens? I was thinking it was 265 or 275.
I got it written at home and I cannot remember, sorry.
It was a substantial grant. So there is nothing out of pocket. We have no financial liability to this or anything else. They're simply using our home rule power to formulate the formation of a land bank, which realistically in the future, as it grows, will have the ability to help us address blighted properties, both residential, but I think in our case, primarily industrial and commercial, because those are the big boo-boos we've got to deal with. Alderman Snow, then Alderman Freeman.
So on the back, you got Exhibit A with Winnebago, Boone, Rockford, and Belvidere. Should we also be including Freeport in that as part of the?
Freeport has their own agreement with R1, and they're using their $15,000 grant money to help fund their. So they made a separate agreement through Region 1.
I didn't know.
No. Alderman Freeman.
So those of us that are on the city-county committee were given a presentation by a couple gentlemen and afforded to ask many questions. I myself was unable to find any negative to this, but I too was under the impression that those gentlemen were going to come and speak to the council at some point.
Well, we can schedule them for the next meeting in December. Yes, Alderman Stevens.
When I went to the meeting, I did love a lot of the ideas that they come up with, a lot of the stuff they talked about and how to work with stuff. I only had a couple concerns that we can bring up when, we get going. I love the idea of the houses that were going to be bought would be turned over or bought by people who are going to live in them. The only thing I was concerned about is people who just want to invest, put a few dollars into it and turn it over. But I did love the idea of a house going back to, say a young couple or someone who wanted to live in it.
There are any number of ramifications on how the program can actually work out, including tear down, resell of the lot, build on the lot, et cetera. Alderman Sanderson.
Thank you. Well, I like the idea that we're moving forward with, trying to make sure that our city, looks nice and we have some kind of guidelines to go to. The other thing is, I just kind of wonder why we can't just do this ourselves, or if there's, they're using our home rule. Is there any legalities with that? Them using us, like they're circumventing the law
No, not at all from that
to use
perspective.
us? Why don't they just, get their own home rule?
No, well, it's not circumventing law. In fact, both the Illinois Constitution of 1970 and Illinois Intergovernmental Cooperation Act provide that essentially non-home rule units can contract with home rule units and share the powers. Obviously, we could not use our home rule powers and, for example, give Rockford home rule to pass new taxes in Rockford. That's not the same concept. But to undertake a joint cooperative agreement to provide a service, yes, you can do that. It's allowed for both under state statute and the Illinois Constitution. So it's not circumventing any law to do this at all. The reason why we can't just do it ourselves, frankly, is the issues that we're talking about are of a regional nature. These kinds of land banks are always regional, because if one entity tries to do it themselves, there isn't the finances available, there isn't the housing stock and need necessarily of the work, or commercial as well, to make it a viable entity. You have to have a much larger pool, so to speak, with which to obtain properties, market the properties, and of course obtain financing as well. So, usually you see there's a land bank based out of the suburbs that involves, I want to say, 5 or 10 or 15 different communities that did that one. You see similar types of agreements, although completely different concept with 911 centers. For example, you see these kinds of intergovernmental agreements, not necessarily home rule, but these kind of intergovernmental agreements where 5 or 6 municipalities get together and have their own 911 center. In effect, we do the same thing with the county with our 911 center. So these kinds of intergovernmental agreements utilizing home rule powers are perfectly acceptable and actually fairly common.
So do we have to, I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
So if we, do we have to go through have all those people approve something that we want done in our area? I kind of wish we had.
There is a board, and
Board.
we are one of the entities on the board. To further explore your question, we would have not gotten a $265,000 grant from the state for developing this project. Mr. Drella and I have been involved in this for 3 or 4 years. We've tried to get this off the ground for quite a while. It occurred when we formed the Regional Planning Commission that this was a natural adjunct to the Regional Planning Condition for all of the items that Attorney Drella had spoken about. No one community is really going to have the financial wherewithal or the ability to work in concert to establish a program like this. All of the ones that are found across the country are regional in nature. One of the things that we avoided, though, with this is there are two. There's one in Greater Chicago and there's one in the Cleveland area. They typically have a manager that's hired to run this thing at salaries, $150,000, $200,000. We've avoided that. We're not going to have to hire an additional person. This will be governed and run by the executive board of the Regional Planning Commission, of which we have a seat. And so my recommendation this evening would be to have a motion and a second to approve, and when it comes to council, we'll have somebody here that night to answer any further questions that we have. Alderman Snow.
So we already have the motion on the floor.
Okay.
But does this work into, or can it work into anything to do with Habitat for Humanity as far as getting them lots and or property to get people moved into and start?
Unexplored possibility.
Okay.
They're a not-for-profit corporation on their own hook, and that would, I don't know how that would work, because there's a potential, I think.
The land bank essentially is it'll be a new legal entity. And think of all the participating municipalities as essentially members of the board of directors and stockholders. For lack of a better word, there's no stock, it's not a corporate entity. Board of directors. The entity, the land bank, will run itself, administer itself, and be run, I believe, through Region 1. Mm-hmm. there's nothing to prevent them from, if they obtain title of property that they just can't deal with, to somehow transfer that to Habitat for Humanity. Although the underwriting purpose of the land bank is to obtain properties at low cost, which are blight that nobody wants, fix them up, and then sell them at least at break even, preferably at a small profit, so you can put money back into the land bank. If they
Or
just
to,
get
or to
property
place
land.
people in them.
Right.
And get them low-cost financing to live in the house, and in that way, start paying property tax, et cetera, et cetera. It's an opportunity to look at, on a many-faceted approach to how to deal with blighted property on a regional basis with everybody working with everybody else. So I think it's a great idea for our region. Yes, Alderman Porter.
I just wanted to clarify, this is going to come back to us for the final vote then, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is only committee to come back in resolution form.
Come back in resolution form. So anybody else tonight? Questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, unanimously approved. We'll come back and we'll have somebody here when it comes back in resolution form to make a presentation. Alderman Sanders?
Yeah, before we adjourn, I just wondered, so the proposal about the chickens is coming up to the next council meeting? So any discussion will be there, because we really didn't have a discussion on that. It was just to allow them to waive the fee. So there really wasn't in committee to have any discussion on the chicken situation in the town. And I thought that usually that comes to committee.
No, zoning matters for some time now have been treated as a motion on committee that come for first reading directly to city council out of P&Z, I'm sorry, for first reading and then go right to second reading, so that's when you usually discuss them. On occasion, usually Alderman Snow, but on occasion, if something comes up that the council felt needed additional discussion at first reading, they'd ask to have that put on the intervening committee meeting, which will be tonight, for further discussion. But no, that'll be discussed next week at second reading.
Okay, it just looks like there might be some discussion on it. And also, I wanted to ask about the chamber dinner. I got an invitation. Is that going to be I got an invitation in the mail as an alderman. Is that going to be, we could have a city table?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. So we should.
No,
we
that's just a
RSVP
cocktail, that's a cocktail party on Saturday night during hometown Christmas. That's not the dinner. The dinner's not till this spring.
Oh, okay, well.
So we don't have a table at the cocktail party.
Okay.
You just RSVP.
All right.
You just make a reservation for you and
Okay.
your wife, and
All right.
that'd be nice.
Thank
It's
you.
at the community building. Anything else from you? Hearing no other business this evening? Yes. May I have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Sanderson? A second, please. Don't be shy. By Alderman Stevens. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Ladies and gentlemen, we are now adjourned. Thank you for your attendance this evening.
So this is going to